Alright, you guys, so I just watched the Red One movie. Does it deserve to fail in the box office as some people are reporting? No. So, going into this, I just want to drop some credentials here. I have none. I'm just a regular guy watching movies. I know nothing about making films or anything of the sort. I'm not even familiar with many big-named actors outside of The Rock and Chris Evans, to be honest. So, coming into this movie as a layman, I really did enjoy it. Of course, I bought tickets for this movie simply because I did read headlines that this movie costed around $200 million to make, and it only generated like $80 million in the first opening weekend, which apparently is bad. It looks like they're not really looking for long-term profits. They kind of just want all the money right away, which I guess makes sense, right? The quicker you make the money back, the better for a movie. But either way, the opening weekend wasn't the best, apparently. And even then, critics seem to just hate the movie, which I think is very fair, right? When you think about The Rock, you don't exactly think about A-tier celebrity. Even though he is considered one, his acting chops aren't exactly amazing. He does play the same character in every single movie he's ever been in. And you know what? I love it. As a fan of The Rock, growing up with The Rock in WWE, I love just watching him do his thing. And then he started being featured in Disney movies like The Tooth Fairy and some other wacky things. And I really enjoy just watching The Rock in general. I don't know what it is. So, coming into this, I was expecting a fun, bad movie. And I'm going to be honest, that is what I got. And a little bit more, too. So I don't want to dive too much into spoilers. Sorry, my cat's kind of messing my mic, so if I misspeak or if something sounds weird, it's because of him. But, I came into this movie only with the bare minimum knowledge requirement. I knew that Santa Claus gets kidnapped, as per the movie summary, and that The Rock is in it. I didn't even know Chris Evans was in it, so that was a pleasant surprise. So I don't want to talk too much about the plot, minus some brief points. Yes, Santa gets kidnapped, and that is pretty interesting, but what I think is even more interesting than Santa Claus is the inclusion of other mythical creatures. It's funny because The Rock I think he was denied access or entry into the Marvel Universe, and apparently The Rock always wanted to join the Marvel Universe. Got denied, so he went to DC and became Black Adam. So yeah, that right there pretty much sums up The Rock's journey up until this movie. And the reason why I bring up DC and Marvel is because in a weird way, Red One kind of tries to set itself up for something greater. So this isn't a spoiler because you learn this in the very beginning of the movie, but a lot of mythical creatures exist in this universe. Any fairy tale or mythical creature you've heard of before exists here, like the Headless Horseman, for example. We have snowmen who come to life. There's a lot of wacky things here. Even Krampus makes an appearance in this movie, and I'm like, wow, they really put some thought into it. It's really fascinating what they kind of set up on the side, and I was almost more interested in seeing characters outside of Santa Claus, if that sounds weird, because this is a Santa Claus Christmas movie, but I was excited to see other things jump in here. And I don't want to say who does or doesn't, but there's only a handful of them, and I really think they could have played to that strength, because, coming into this with no knowledge, I was pleasantly surprised every time we met something new. So yeah, I thought that was really cool. Outside of Christmas, I could see them making an Easter Bunny movie. I'm trying to think what other mythical creatures are there? Loch Ness Monster, maybe Bigfoot. I thought that was pretty cool. Another thing that really surprised me was the quality of the CGI. Like I said, I'm a layman. I can't really tell good versus bad CGI minus obvious examples. But I thought everything in this movie looked really high quality. The monster designs, the graphics where they use their abilities. I thought everything looked pretty phenomenal, which explains why it has such a massive budget of $200 million. And yeah, I think from start to finish, they played really well with the set pieces and everything. The one thing that does take away from this movie, in my opinion, is the relationship between Jack, one of the main characters who's played by Chris Evans, and his son. I think it's kind of ham-fisted into the movie. It's not really tackled too prominently, minus the beginning and the end. In the middle part, you almost forget that Chris Evans even has a son. And then when he shows up at the very end, and it's this whole shebang, it's it's cool, but I almost feel the kid should have been with us in the middle segments. But yeah, that's a personal complaint with the movie, in my opinion. That's my main negative point. Outside of that, though, another thing I do want to give praise to is the writing and the jokes. So this is very subjective, right? Everybody has a different sense of humor, but this movie, I don't think they were trying to be funny with a lot of scenes, but it does land in this bad good comedy section of the genre. Like, for example, The Rock has a scene where he turns to Chris Evans and he's like, "We're gonna save Christmas," and he means it. Like, he's not trying to like make a joke, but it's hilarious that he says it because it's so cheesy. And I was in the audience, I was laughing, my wife was laughing, multiple people in the audience were laughing because they said that with a straight face. They do that multiple times in the movie where they say things that are just so on the nose, cheesy or gimmicky, and people ate it up. I think it's one of those things where it's like you don't you expect it, but you don't expect it. You know what I mean? So I thought there's a lot of moments like that that really did just bring a smile to my face. Like, you could have a super serious scene, and then all of a sudden they drop one of those horrible one-liners, and it doesn't ruin the mood. It enhances the mood, in my opinion. So going to the plot, like, it's hard because I'm trying to dance around this. And like I said, it's my first like movie review, but as far as the plot of A Kidnapped Santa Claus, we've seen this a bajillion times, right? I'm sure you guys can think of like 10 movies off the top of your head that focus around Santa Claus being missing for Christmas. It's nothing exactly new. What I thought was really cool was who kidnapped him. I think that's like the more interesting segments of it, and just seeing The Rock and Chris Evans try to find Santa Claus and going through all these different avenues of the mythological world is really fun. Because I'm trying to think. The first movie that pops in my head is, what was it, like Who Stole Santa Claus, which is like a Cartoon Network exclusive, but it turned out that it was just like some guy's aunt and a grandma that stole Santa Claus, and it was like, okay, that's whatever, like who cares about that, right? But in this movie, it's fun seeing them like go from dimension to dimension looking for Santa Claus. It felt like a Marvel film in a weird way. Like, I remember at one point in the movie, I turned to my wife and I was like, wait, are we watching like Loki and the TVA? Like, what the hell is this, right? So yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. I think it is a fun twist. And like I said, I don't think this movie deserves to bomb at the box office like it apparently is. I can't speak too much on budgets because I'm not like well versed in it, but yeah, I think this is a really fun movie. If you have like an extra $10, I would recommend seeing it for Christmas. I mean, it's not like anybody's really pumping out Christmas movies nowadays, right? Like, I kind of wanted to watch like other movies, but they're all horror movies, and I'm like, well, I mean, we're in November time, we're about to enter December. Like, I kind of do want just like a goofy Christmas movie, and that's exactly what this was. Oh yeah, before we end off though, I do want to list one more negative. Let me look it up real quick. But in the Red One poster, which I do like looking at movie posters, as that sounds a little bit silly, they show like this giant polar bear in the background. And you would think that with the giant polar bear in the background being such a prominent figure in the poster, that he would be with Chris Evans and The Rock while they try to save Santa Claus. And that is kind of what I came into this movie thinking, but that's not the case. You could definitely tell that the giant polar bear is just kind of shoehorned in there. It's like one of the CEOs was like, hey, people love giant animals. Let's just throw him in the poster, pretend like he's a big character. But really, you see him for a whole span of like maybe 2 minutes in total in the entire 2-hour movie. So yeah, I felt a little bit catfish with that, but that's neither here nor there. Same with the Asian chick on the far right. She pops in for maybe 5 minutes of total screen time. So again, another character that seems prominent in the beginning, or at least through the poster, but not really seen much in the movie. Another negative I do want to list off is the final fight. So the fights in this movie are a lot of fun. Like I said, the CGI is really good. But the final fight, I feel like, didn't last long enough. Without trying to like tell you what happens, essentially there's one person that shows up at the very end and they kind of just deal with the problem instantly, and that's very disappointing considering how cool the final villain actually looks. And I was absolutely impressed when they showed up and like, they had this crazy form going on, and I was like, whoa, like that's sick, dude. I can't wait to take this monster down. And then obviously like one person shows up and then the whole problem's solved in like the span of 30 seconds. And I'm like, you could have extended it a little bit, right? It felt like we had all of this build up to get to the final villain, and then it was solved in a matter of seconds. Same with a lot of the side villains. Like, I think the main villain has like a little posse of like 11 children or something silly. And we have like the elf agency, which is the Santa Claus's crew. They end up squaring off against them, and then we see them clash for like 2 seconds, like, punch, 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 and then that's it. we would just cut away and we just assume they won. Like I said, I feel like they could have spent a little bit longer in the final fights. I think that would have been fine. Because beforehand, I think the choreography is pretty decent, which sounds a little bit silly in a Christmas movie, but when you see The Rock fight other people, it's like, oh, that's cool, dude. But then again, it's The Rock, so I don't know if I'm like holding these side characters to high standards or not. But yeah, I thought the fights could have been prolonged just a tidbit. And like I said, I do wish they leaned more into other Christmas mythical creatures. Like I would have loved to see like the Nutcracker, for example, or the Gingerbread Man, or something goofy. But of course, like I said, they did set up this giant, weird mythological universe. I don't know if they'll ever go anywhere with it. It kind of reminds me of the what is it, like the Dark Universe, with all like the monsters like Frankenstein and the Invisible Man. And then it turns out that they didn't really do anything with that. So yeah, hopefully they take this franchise and do more. Like maybe there's a Red 2 or something goofy. But yeah, overall though, if you're looking for like a silly, fun Christmas movie with the family or Christmas movie with a loved one, I do recommend Red 1. I thought it was very enjoyable. I thought I was going to go in there watching a bad movie. Turns out it was fun bad in the best ways possible. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.